You know what, guys? One thing I've learned so far watching the Premier League, as great as Arsenal have been going, is that when Man City get very threatened, they become such crybabies. More on that now on the Premier League show. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our Premier League live show. Let's make sure that we are live as well on Instagram. Can we make sure we're live on Instagram, ladies and gentlemen? Okay, whatever. Anyway, welcome everyone to the Premier League show. Obviously, after an amazingly intense and dramatic round 5 in the Premier League, we are back. Sorry we missed last week's episode. It was a very hectic week for me. We did miss last week, and we missed, obviously, the reactions to the North London derby where Arsenal beat Tottenham. But today is all about another Arsenal game, the game of the year so far in the Premier League, Arsenal against Manchester City. Welcome along to everybody in the chat. Make sure you're hitting the like button on your way in. And if you haven't already, make sure you are subscribing to Hotsport. We are trying to build the most amazing community here. And with your support, we can make that happen. Shout out to anybody away in the live chat. If you are interested at all to coming on the show, please just don't hesitate. And we will be willing to get you in. I'll send you a link. Potentially, we could just open the phone lines, have a bit of a chat. But for the moment, guys, let me know your comments as well in the chat box. Let's get some arguments. Let's get into some fights here, because what I'm about to say is very, very controversial. Obviously, I use my Premier League show platform as a chance for me to kind of relax, open up, maybe be a bit more biased than I am in my other videos, and kind of just speak my feelings. And it's interesting in terms of this topic that I'm bringing up here. And obviously, I have advertised talking about Michael Oliver, as we know. I said the title of this video being, once again, we're talking about a referee. And you guys all think that I'm here to talk about Michael Oliver because of the Leandro Trossard sending off. That is not actually what we're talking about, because there's been a lot of things that have come on that I didn't really notice in the heat of the moment. As the final moments of the football match just kind of went by, I didn't realize kind of all the extra little details and stuff. And one man should be spoken about beyond just the referee, and that is one Erling Haaland. Not just Erling Haaland, but as well the comments of the Manchester City players after the match and everything, and just sort of the way that social media has perceived Arsenal post-match. Social media has perceived Manchester City. There's been so much aftermath to this that I just kind of want to talk about it and bring it all together. And this is a topic that I've been very passionate about. My blood has been boiling over the last couple of days, getting ready to do this show so I can just finally unleash. Woo! And here's my issue. Erling Haaland has indeed, in this game, I'm just going to talk about the refereeing part. And yeah, we could talk about the Trossard sending off, and we'll get into it. But after City scored the goal, Haaland literally threw the ball at Gabriel's head, threw it at him. Think, oh, haha, it's funny. And he threw the ball at the back of his head. And then later on, he decides after the kickoff to bowl over Thomas Partey and bowl over Gabriel and just run them over in front of the eyes of the referee. You know, obviously, I understand why the referee has taken no action, because in his mind, the game is seconds away from ending, so there's no reason in sending the player off, and I disagree with that vehemently. My issue here, now we're going to get back to the Trossard thing, is the double standard in refereeing today in the Premier League. And I feel like I'd love to have a live show where we're just talking about the football rather than just refereeing and the off of the pitch stuff. How many times on these live post games now am I talking about things that are happening within the context of the football match that are not football? And so the reason why here is the standard. Say, hey, you sent off an Arsenal player for, again, the theme of Arsenal season so far, delaying the restart. My favorite words. I think everyone's favorite words. So now we use it so much they've used the term to death. And so you're going to send a player off for that. But when a player physically takes the ball and throws it at another player for fun, hilarious, oh, so comical. And then he, after the kickoff, throws not one, but two Arsenal players down to the ground like he's some sort of tractor, and he just runs them over. And then goes over to the manager and tells him, something about you don't have the mentality or something. It like this guy is meant to be a professional footballer to begin with. You're supposed to act. He's supposed to be the best striker in the world. He's supposed to behave thusly. And I just think it's absolutely disgraceful behavior, and it's absolutely consistent. And this is why I understand the sending off Erling Haaland does not change the game. But what it does do is, it sends a message that stuff like that is just not okay. That type of behavior is childish, and it's reckless, and it's dangerous. Like, honestly, you look, Ian Wright came out talking about the throwing the ball at the back of the head thing, which is absolute disrespect to begin with. But I have more of an issue with the thing that began the kerfuffle in midfield. And in my original reel, I said kerfuffle, like as if I didn't really understand what was going on, because I didn't really understand what was going on. But when you tackle two players to the ground like that, you are now risking their health, their injury. And I get that, and we'll obviously cover this topic as well later in the video, that Erling Haaland lost one of his most valuable teammates in Rodri to a long-term injury. But it did not make it okay to then go ahead and tackle others. And there's so many layers to this cake. But I will begin with this part, and this just the Michael Oliver part and the refereeing part, and then we'll get into the details a bit further. I have an issue with the fact that he has not set a tone. He's making a really big deal about delaying the restart, and yet shoving players and throwing balls at players' heads is okay. Now, if anybody gets sent off for that in the future, if anybody throws a ball or someone shoves, there's a precedent now. The Michael Oliver, apparently the best referee in England, my butt, it has set that precedent. So now, obviously, it's okay. The other thing, though, and this is why I don't mind. I don't mind the fact that it doesn't change the result. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm not complaining about the 2-2 result. If anybody, and we'll discuss this later, will know that I actually have absolutely no problem with how the game panned out in totality, including Arsenal being down to 10 men. But if you send Erling Haaland off for a straight red there, excuse me while I drink. By the way, guys, I really got into matcha recently. My girlfriend got me onto matcha. It's actually so delicious and so milky. And it's a nice little source of caffeine. Erling Haaland, if he gets a straight red there in that game, means that Man City would have to go the next 3 games without Haaland. And that would completely set the precedent. That means that no one would ever attempt to do such BS ever again. Because, like, Man City, well, and I'll get into the layers of the cake. I said in my opening segment, I've never ever known Man City to be such crybabies until there comes a point where you actually threaten them. This is my underlining statement, and I'm going to say it, and this is going to be the whole statement of the night. And this should have been the title of my video, but no one would come for this because they'd be like, oh, look, there's a biased Arsenal fan. Man City are thoroughly scared of Arsenal. It's very, very clear to me. They behave like someone who is threatened. Do you know what it's like? It's like, it's so funny, actually. Me and my girlfriend were just watching Emily in Paris. And Gabriel, every time he sees another guy talk to Emily, he feels threatened. He starts not talking to that guy very nicely, or he starts talking badly of them or making jokes. And that's because Gabriel is threatened by the other guy, right? And Arsenal right now, Man City right now is threatened by Arsenal. That is why at the end of the game, Bernardo Silva is talking about, oh, one team came to play football, the other one did not. Like as if Arsenal is just going to let Man City do whatever the hell they want when we're down to 10 men. Of course we're going to put 9 men in the box. Of course we are. We're going to Etihad against Man City. That's why every single time Arsenal score a goal, like the beautiful goal that Ricardo Calafiori scored, or the header that Gabriel scored, there are 10 Manchester City players in the face of the referee. Because they are scared, they are threatened, and they were this close, ladies and gentlemen, to losing to Arsenal on their own home turf. And I swear to you, I'm telling you right now, we'll lock this in. Arsenal are beating Man City in this when they play at the Emirates this year. And they're not just going to be a close game. They are going to, I think it's going to be like 3-1 or something like that. I think it's not even going to be close because I think Arsenal at the moment, you know what I smell? That's what Arsenal smell. Fear. They smell little babies, right? Man City, they act like their fans and their players and their coach talk like they are entitled to being this. Let me teach you guys what it's like to be a champion. Let me show you. Let me give you a class. Winning the League 101. That's the way their fans talk to you. That's the way Pep talk to you. That's the way their players quote themselves in the media. And yet, this team that is so above it all, whenever right now they play Arsenal, we are in their minds. They played a Carabao Cup game this morning against Watford, and all we are hearing about are quotes about Arsenal. And that after they played Watford. This is a team that they are threatened. They are scared. And Arsenal were seconds away from absolutely embarrassing them. Because not only were we down to 10 men, or should I say, not only were Arsenal down to 10 men, Martin Odegaard is nowhere to be seen. And if anybody's been watching my reels, I'm real with you as an Arsenal fan that I'm afraid of what Arsenal's attack can look like without Martin Odegaard. That we look like a team that's completely disjointed moving forward and out of ideas. And yet, we, without Martin Odegaard, went 2-1 up at the Etihad. And then, not just to make matters even worse for Man City, we had a man sent off. But who was sacrificed at halftime for the Arteta's new plan? Bukayo Saka. So not only have Arsenal now played without Martin Odegaard, their best player, they're missing now Bukayo Saka, their second best player. Thank you, Righty1. Thank you for the message. He says, can't blame the ref. Arsenal have the longest restarts in the Prem. The delaying tactics are coached. Look, thank you for the comment. And look, just to respond to that, I'd say you're right. And I actually have no issue with the Leandro Trossard sending off. The reason why I obviously, I came here 2 weeks ago and I was on a rant about Declan Rice. But the thing is now that precedent's been set. So Leandro Trossard absolutely knows that now that's happened to Declan Rice, that kicking the ball and delaying the restart is a yellow card offense. And so therefore, I had no problem with the decision. I could live with it. And at the end of the back of my head, I sat there and I was like, you know what? I'm fine with 10 men because I know that this team, this defense, we can sit back and defend as a unit. And for everybody criticizing, Arsenal the way they play in the second half, can I tell you, I'm not disappointed. There are any Arsenal fans out there, by the way, who are disappointed by Arsenal's second half performance. They're lying. Because I'm telling you right now, I sat there on my couch in Australia here, like 2:30 a.m. And anytime any Arsenal player would be on the halfway line, I was like, get back, come on, get back. And I had no issues with it. My issue here, Radius One, and thank you for your comment, is that the referee allowed Erling Haaland to behave the way he did at the end. Radius One, so it's another message. Oh yeah, it's still a good point, and Rodri injured, so it's a win, to be honest. Look, to be fair, that is a very good point, Radius. Yeah, Rodri is injured, and we are gonna get into that. And yeah, look, that's a very good point because no Odegaard, no Rodri. In Arsenal, actually, it was 1-0 at the point when Rodri gets injured and leaves the game. And so, yeah, look, I think that's a very fair take, very good take there by Radius. Nonetheless, I still believe that the result 2-2 was a fair result. Look, we were close, so close to winning that game. But given the amount of possession that City had in the second half, the absolute domination, one goal out of that, I think, was a fair result. Look, I'm disappointed. But again, my issues right now, what I'm upset about are the way people talk about Arsenal's second half performance as if it's calling it football terrorism and like this is the thing about Man City, right? And this is what gets under my skin and what tells me that really through it all, they are really just a bunch of spoiled brats. And I'm not afraid to say it. And that is because like every time that like generally they play and they're dominating the ball. They get 4, 5, 6 goals. Haaland's getting hat tricks everywhere. And the minute somebody challenges them, has the balls to challenge them or try to counteract them, they go, one team came to play football today. The other team, they didn't. Oh, wow. They didn't let us do whatever we want. And that is reflected in their fans, the way they throw attention on social media, and it's reflected in the players in the quotes that they have after the game. And you can tell. Look, one thing that's also underlined is the Haaland's behavior also backs up my point here. Haaland's not throwing the ball and mocking at a player from Southampton. He's not throwing a ball at a player from, I don't know, even Chelsea probably at the moment, or even from Man United or Spurs. But he'd throw a ball at an Arsenal player. You know why? Because they were frustrated. They were frustrated how we kept them out. They were frustrated how we're getting closer to them. And they know it. They could feel it. So Rodri or no Rodri, and again, Radius One with a very, very good point there because I did leave it out. And everything is fair. I'm always willing to be fair. I'm always willing to be objective. But I still believe that Arsenal are bridging the gap. Not only, I think this game is, to me, even though it finishes 2-2, significantly showed to me that Arsenal could be about to surpass them because they needed Arsenal to go down to 10 men in order to get any sort of result at their own home ground, where Arsenal's best two players weren't on the pitch. And granted, Roger being out is big, and it's going to have a big impact on the season. And this is the massive equalizer. And let me talk about the title race as a whole, and we'll move on. We'll recap some of the other games, and we'll put this Man City thing to bed. And look, again, we didn't really come to talk about the Man City game as much about the football. I think we've talked about more about the off-field drama. That's what I wanted to kind of cover here. But my main point here is that the Rodri injury, as bad as it is, and by the way, I wish, I'm going to say it, for me and all my people at Hotsport, my producer sitting here in the background, we all wish Rodri the best and his recovery. Like, I never wish that upon anyone. And Arsenal currently have a player that very important that is also uninjured, and Martin Odegaard. And Martin Odegaard's injury happened before I made my prediction to the Premier League title. So, because I thought that there'd be a good 2-month period where Arsenal would really, really struggle to create chances. And it's looking that way. Like, our goals that we've been scoring since his injury, we have a header from two headers from Gabriel, and a rocket from outside the box by Calafiori, all three of which defenders. But none of these goals are built in a very sustainable way, like in the Arsenal way. Arsenal are unable to really at the moment keep the ball and dominate the ball without Odegaard. But with Rodri being out now, that is the key cog in the Manchester City wheel. You could talk about Haaland, you could talk about De Bruyne, you could talk about Foden. The most important player in Man City's team is Rodri. And they did well at the early parts of the season, and I've mentioned it over and over again in every single match review regarding Man City, that it's very scary how dominantly they're playing without him. But it was very underlined here, the minute that Rodri comes out of the game, that Arsenal do begin to dominate it, and until the red card. So I think it's now Arsenal's missing Odegaard, City is missing Rodri. It's game on, and that's kind of my point of view here. The title race is very much up and running, and if anybody thinks that it's a foregone conclusion that Man City are going to win the league, this Rodri thing is a big deal. It really is a big deal. If there's any chance now that Man City were to be vulnerable, and especially with all the stuff going off the pitch that are going to be happening starting tomorrow, with all of the court cases and the tribunals, everything, we'll talk about, their lawsuit. They sued the Premier League. That's going to come up soon. And then the 115 charges. There are going to be a lot of distractions on the pitch, and without Rodri. Like, at the moment, if Arsenal do not win the league this year, I will categorically come on here and tell you that we've absolutely bottled it. And that is where my conversation on this match finishes. By the way, I have now gone this entire stream without my background. Well, Radius, thank you for the comment. He goes, "You are right. It's the best time to win it." Thank you, Radius. I appreciate that. By the way, what team do you support? Just out of curiosity, let me know that in the comments section. Moving on now, let's talk about some other games. And the other big game I reckon there was of the weekend was when West Ham hosted Chelsea. And look, it's really funny. I was thinking about this since this game. Last week I did my Premier League prediction show, and all prior to that, I've been mocking Chelsea. All about all the players that they have and all this. And, at the end of the day, everybody hypes them that they're probably going to end up ninth. And I had a rethink literally in the last 24 hours before I made my video. And I'm like, you know what? Chelsea been playing some pretty good football recently. And the new signings are actually clicking into gear. And I watched that Wolves game, and oh, nice. Radius with a comment says, I support Leeds, but I watch a lot of fan channels on my algorithm. Oh, nice. Awesome. Well, Radius, we are more than happy to have you here at Hotspot. There's going to be so much content coming for you. And thank you so much for contributing to the show today. So, one thing I thought, I was like, you know what? I'm picking Chelsea for the top four. All of a sudden, I decided, like, you know what? I'm picking Chelsea for the top four. The big mistake it seems like I've made, though, two big mistakes. One, Crystal Palace in the top 10, because I've been waiting now week after week after week, looking like a stupid idiot, being like, this is the week that Crystal Palace will break it, will win their first game. This is the week that Crystal Palace will win their first game. And I'm going to do it next week, I promise. I look at the matchup. I'm like, I'm going to be like, this is the week that Crystal Palace finally win their first game. That'll be in Anton's picks. But I also picked West Ham to be top 6, which is the other one. And I'm just going to be very candid about what I saw the other day. And that is not a good football team. Now, they obviously have, some good players going forward. Mohamed Kudus, for example. I liked some of the additions they made. I like Somerville. I like Phil Krug. Obviously, I love Bowen, being an England fan. Love myself from Jared Bowen. Paquetá is a great, great football player. But defensively, and this isn't the first time, like I'm not the one to just after one game react and tell you this is the rule after one game. I've now watched plenty of games now against some of the biggest teams. So now we're talking about Chelsea, Arsenal, Man City. I actually have a sample of against them against all three recently. Arsenal went to West Ham and we scored 6, right? We won 6-0 away there. That defense that day was absolutely terrible. Man City went to West Ham. They also, of course, Erling Haaland bags a hat trick, right? They absolutely ripped them through them like nothing. And then Chelsea, it's like one thing Arsenal, Man City, but Chelsea had everything they wanted. To watch that opening goal as Nicholas Jackson just strolls into the attacking third, right? And he goes, oh, well, no one's really going to come here challenge me. He keeps running. He gets all the way in and he scores. Like, it is just the most easiest thing ever. And that is not going to be sustainable for a top 6 club. I need to send some apologies to a few teams, one of whom is Aston Villa, who I severely underrated. And I actually think that Aston Villa is that team that's going to once again challenge me in the top place. They actually could be, Aston Villa, by the way, look more impressive right now through this part of the season than Tottenham, than Man United. Who else? Maybe even Chelsea on some days. But Chelsea are looking good, and they look like they've got together. And of course, they played in the Carabao this morning. They looked magnificent. And look, I'm feeling good about my last-minute pivot that I pivoted to Chelsea. I'm not going to lie. And by the way, this is Nicholas Jackson's best game I've ever seen him play, ever at all. Like, it was almost like he came at the perfect time for him. He finally looked like a competent footballer, didn't he? Yeah, so those are just kind of my notes on this. We're not going to talk too much about the game specifically. That's not the nature of this show. That's why I have reels for. So this, let me take a look at some of the scores across the Premier League again, just as a reminder. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. So Liverpool. Let's talk about them for a sec. And I want to talk about Luis Diaz and Darwin Nunez because, again, for the longest time, people have been trolling those two players for Liverpool. And I've obviously got many close friends that are Liverpool supporters, and we talk about it all the time, and they are so frustrated by those players. It's actually not even rival fans who mock Nunez and Diaz. It's Liverpool fans. And I gotta say, so far, Luis Diaz has looked remarkable this year, with the exception of the first game. And some of the goals he's scoring, are like literally out of this world. Like he's putting a final finishing touch, and that 10-minute spell where Diaz and Nunez literally run riot through Bournemouth's defense absolutely is the mark of a top team. To be able to, one moment it looks like you're getting yourself into the game, and the next minute it's over. And that's what Barcelona used to do under Pep Guardiola, Lionel Messi, is that you would go through these phases of like 3, 4, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and you would go from feeling like you're in the game to all of a sudden it's completely thrown out, like completely gone. But look, Liverpool looking really good on our early slot. They had the one against Nottingham Forest, and for anybody who watched my reel of them last week, I'll just kind of give you my 2 cents on what I talked about the Forest game. Was that like everyone's going to have those days. Man City are going to have those days, and they're going to complain about it. They'll be like, "Oh my God, this only one team came to play the football today. Oh no!" And they're going to call the other team football terrorists or whatever. They're going to have that day, right? Arsenal, we're going to have a few. We're going to have a few of those days, and there's no reason for Liverpool to have any shame out of that whatsoever. Nottingham Forest aren't beaten this season for a reason, and yeah, it's not bad. It's not a look. To lose or drop 3 points is bad, but at the moment right now they got more points than us. So yeah, shout out to Liverpool. You guys looking good in that game. The other one I wanted to touch for quickly before we go, because I only really wanted to pop in here for this post round show, my Premier League show, weekly show. We will be having this live once a week. Last week we didn't have it because I was getting really tied up in work. But next week we will be back again to review the matches next week. And we'll preview some of those games coming up in a second. But the one thing I want to talk about is actually not about Man United, not about Villa even, although that Villa game was really good. Not even about Spurs. Actually, I want to touch on Spurs for a second, just to underline a point that I drove across in my post-match reel, in my of the Tottenham game. One thing, and by the way, it's completely driven home, and this is again more Arsenal stuff, more Arsenal agenda. Tottenham looked good, didn't they? Against Brentford, they had whatever they wanted to. They had freedom of the pitch. Brennan Johnson scoring goals. Like, they are looking really good. Solanke scoring goals. Did anyone notice that Tottenham did not have any of that space to operate last week whatsoever? Like, this Arsenal defense is seriously no joke. And when you see other teams play after they played Arsenal and they look so good offensively, you're like, wow, damn, people do not appreciate how well Arsenal defend. And if you look at Man City, the way they've ripped through every team in the competition, and then they played Arsenal and they could barely score against 10 men, you really start to appreciate the defense of William Saliba, Gabriel, most notably David Raya, who's been the best goalie all year. And yeah, Tottenham, well done to you guys, and you guys thoroughly needed that. And look, obviously, I don't ever love to watch Tottenham win, but even as an Arsenal fan, I started feeling pity on you, and I was like, and I kind of like Ange Postecoglou as a guy, and I was happy to see them win. I'm not gonna lie. And the other thing before we wrap up the video, and we'll talk about some of the matchups coming up, and we'll look forward to some of the games coming up next week in match week 6. But man, it was nice to see Emile Smith-Rowe and Reiss Nelson both on the score sheet for Fulham. And that's all I got to say. It's nice to see it. It shows you the quality that we have, that some of our players that never touch grass at Arsenal go to Fulham and they do good. Who do you think will be the biggest challenge other than City? Are you talking about for Arsenal, Radius? Let me see. Obviously, the obvious answer would be Liverpool. Are you talking about in actual matches or in? Okay, yeah, Arsenal. Okay. Um, well, obviously, the obvious answer is Liverpool. Although, to be honest, we play them in a few weeks' time. I'm not too afraid of them. But this artist slot version of Liverpool is looking very, very good. They're a lot more solid defensively. They're a lot more controlling in the games than they were a year ago with Klopp. And I'm probably one of the only people you're going to see on YouTube that is actually going to tell you that the switch to slot probably improved Liverpool over the summer. I mean, because this is a Liverpool team that didn't really make any major signings apart from Federico Chiesa, which, by the way, is a signing that people completely overlooked. He looked good the other day. But yeah, I think they're playing a lot more structured. They're a lot more controlled. They're able to go in front and shut you out. Where Jurgen Klopp's teams are back up and down, back and forth, and I felt they ran out of gas at the back end of the year last year. And sometimes the games are just too chaotic. Radius writes again, it's a fair point that there's more control in their game. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Look, I'm not going to ever disrespect Klopp. I'm just going to make that clear. I think Klopp is one of the best 5 Premier League managers of all time. But at the end of the day, I just think they're again they're much closer to the type of football that formula that Arsenal and Man City use, which is go in front and be solid defensively and stranglehold the game, right? And so Liverpool with this formula are a lot more. Tango.
Ringo, how you there?
They're a lot more formidable, I think, at this point, using this formula. Yeah. So let's just take a look quickly at the fixtures ahead in the Premier League in match week 6. So let's see some of the games. I will be coming out with my picks. So anyone, Radius, you've been commenting along here. If you guys want to see more of my videos, see the what I have here, Hotsport at AAU at TikTok and Instagram. We post reels, post-match reaction reels. We do a thing called Anton's Picks, both for the Premier League and for the NFL. So I kind of do quick previews and basically my picks, and I basically go right up to kickoff before I make my decision because a lot of stuff happens, injuries, different bits and bobs, news and stuff. I just like to make sure that I have every piece of information before I make any sort of decisions. But the take a look at some of the fixtures coming up this week. Just kind of the note. I'm just talking about the big boys. So we're talking about Man City a lot today. Man City go to Newcastle in the early kickoff. I actually believe that this could be a danger game for Newcastle. Now, in general, when Man City come up to play and they're not playing against Arsenal, I go, okay, well, who are you kidding? City's going to win today. I think away at Newcastle, given the emotional match they just played against Arsenal, given what's about to go on off the pitch with the 115 and the court case and all that sort of stuff, it'd be and given the Rodri injury, by the way, I reckon they could be slightly vulnerable against Newcastle. For some reason, they keep talking, which is generally not a thing that City does. They're genuinely not talking as much as they have after this game. And I feel like their minds are still in this game that just happened. I think there's a chance here. A chance. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I think this is a really good opportunity here for Newcastle to pick up points. And by the way, if that were to happen, it would really kick off the title race at a very early point, not just for Arsenal, but for Liverpool too, because Liverpool as well are on 12 points. Then after that, Arsenal take on Leicester at the Emirates. Look, one thing I'm going to tell you, and I've kind of alluded to this again, and I'm really interested to see what it looks like. Arsenal's been able to get away with Odegaard's absence because we haven't been playing games where we are expected to have the fair share of the possession. We played against Spurs away, right? We played counter-attacking. We knew that, it's a great way to play, which is just let Tottenham have the ball, let them get a false sense of confidence, and then you can play through the lines and hit them on the break, right? Or we actually scored from a corner, right? Then you played Man City away. Actually, first you played Atalanta in the Champions League away, which is very difficult. The Europa League champions. Again, there's no reason for Arsenal to be the team with a fair share of possession in such a game. And then we, of course, went to the Etihad against a team that dominates possession against everybody. Now I'm interested to see what Arsenal look like when we have to have the ball, which we're supposed to try to control possession, create chances, and we don't have our key chance maker. What and by the way, are we going to have Leandro Trossard for the game? Because I believe he's going to serve his suspension tonight when we play against Bolt. I'm pretty sure that's the case. But I think it's an opportunity for Arsenal to try Ethan Nwaneri. And that's my personal opinion. I think we're going to find out a lot about Arsenal. Like when we are the team that now has to keep possession and we don't have the guy who creates the chances for us, what are we going to look like against Leicester? Because I think we also could be on upset alert at home just because Arsenal will be trying to figure it all out for the first time, really. We're going to put in possession where we're going to have to play an offensive game. And that's going to be something very interesting to see. Chelsea against Brighton should also be a very good game. Ooh, this would be a really, really cracking weekend of football. At Chelsea against Brighton should definitely be upset alert again for Chelsea. And like I said, my thing about Chelsea is their results are kind of all over the place. And you never know. Like, again, I got it wrong again. I tried second-guess myself this week. I got it wrong. I actually picked a loss. They far from lost. They won 3-0. But Brighton is tough. Brighton could really, really take a point or win at the Bridge. So I'm going to stew over that one for a while. Everton hosting Crystal Palace. Now this one, absolutely. I'm going to tell you right now, this one, and I don't want to ruin my picks reel later on. This has to be Crystal Palace's first game of the win of the season. Hasn't Everton? That has to be it. And then Wolves. So Liverpool go to Molineux again. That is also a tough game, and also, man, there's some really interesting games this week. And Villa play Ipswich. Not as interesting. I think that should be a comfortable win for Villa. But Ipswich, when they played Liverpool at home, they showed that they could be a good home side. And then, of course, the match of the week. Tweedledee versus Tweedledum. Manchester United against Tottenham Hotspur. That I am looking forward to thoroughly. And it should be entertaining. Anyway, guys, we are going to wrap it up here for the Premier League show. Thank you so much for everyone for tuning in, and especially to you, Radius, who have contributed very much on the show today. Thank you for all your comments. Make sure, again, you guys are hitting a like on this video. It helps with the algorithm. And make sure you're subscribing if you're enjoying the content, because we have so much more coming out. I'm in the process of editing my weekly top 10 NFL power ranking segment, which I videoed yesterday. So that should be coming out soon. And again, take a look out for Anton's picks for both NFL and the Premier League. And as well, by the way, for all of everyone watching in Australia, there is a grand final between Sydney and Brisbane this weekend. Unfortunately, Hotspur is not in the position yet to cover the AFL. We will be covering the AFL from next season, but currently we are we're focusing on basically the Premier League and the NFL and the NBA when it comes out next month. But I'm going to need, to be able to have some extra people added to my network who are more knowledgeable in footy than I am. So it is coming in the pipeline. But again, thank you everybody for watching along to this live. I've very much enjoyed the last 45 minutes or so with you. And I hope to see you guys in the next video or next live, hopefully. Peace.